It's working. Hey, we're live again.
Again, it's the last Wednesday in October. We're about to be in November. Last this month has flown by quick
It
and
really
uh
has.
and that's good. That means we're busy. I hope it's going quick for all of you too, because it probably means you're doing some great stuff and are busy and not just waiting for things to happen. You're making things happen.
Yep.
And let's see. So, hey, today we got a great topic, and let's just get right to recording our episode, and then
For those
we
of you who
will.
are new to us, Tom and Tracy Hazard, we record our Feed Your Brand podcast live, and we're coaching in Zoom with our clients from Podetize at the same time. So we're very efficient in our live streaming. We actually have a topic coming up on how we do this. We'll reveal that in the next month. But we're recording this live. You're only going to catch the Feed Your Brand portion and a little bit of chit chat here as we've been doing that. We end it and then we go to our Q&A with our clients.
Any of them
So
that are here live with us in Zoom, and the only way you would be is if you're a customer of Podatas.
no, that's not true.
Oh, that's true. There are also some other people. You're right. You've included some new people. I forgot.
No, if you are a Podcasters United member
Mm,
who receives the newsletter, you actually get the link into Zoom.
that's
That's
great.
it. That's
Yeah,
all you have to
forgot
do.
about
There's
that.
no membership fee over at Podcasters United. It's a nonprofit supporting podcasters. If you are over there, all you have to do is subscribe to the AI newsletter, which is pretty cool. Check it out. And then you can have the exact same link that our clients have. So,
All
all
right,
right, let's get started.
let's go. Hold on one sec. There we go. Hey everyone, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazard along with my co-host Tracy Hazard, and today we're going to talk about leveraging AI for podcast thought leadership. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in this. AI is the big new thing in 2024 and beyond, and it's been coming for a while. But gosh, there are so many different ways you can leverage AI. And I'm sure, Tracy, you're excited to talk about this because you're a resident expert in AI.
Well, here's the thing. Look, the being an expert in AI is just about a bunch of tools. Right? It's a learning how to navigate a bunch of tools. But those tools aren't going to do you any good if you don't have a message you want to use them with, right? Like if you don't have a business you're going to use them in, if you don't have something, I mean, they're fun to use. Go use them, go check them out, play with them a little bit, have a conversation. But they aren't going to do you any good and they aren't going to grow your business if there's no human behind it. And that's what I want to remind us today that we're really talking about if we truly want AI to be valuable, we have to let our uniqueness come through the AI. We have to get human thought leadership to show up on the other side. And there are some ways that we do that, but we're lucky here. Every single one of us podcasters are have the absolute best opportunity if you harness it right for being the thought leaders that emerge in this AI world.
And Tracy, I think that's really the issue. And I think we should talk about before we get into the best practices to do this, which I know we're going to cover today, how to do this and why podcasters are in a unique position to benefit from AI if you do it right. Let's talk about a couple of the consequences of not doing that, about, the reality of if you don't ask the right questions, if you don't feed it the right data, what you're going to get out of it is not going to be very useful. And that's the nice way to put it. You might have maybe a better way to say that.
Well, I don't even think it's your personal use of it that's going to be junk, right? It's the LLM, the large language model itself. I mean, it's already starting, according to some experts, that we are already starting to see so much regurgitation and junk coming out of AI that it's just an indicator of how, I'm going to call it dumbed down, how mediocre it's going to become if there's not original thought continually injected into it, right? And that's the difference right there. I can use it any day of the week and get amazing results. And people will go like, that's AI? That's not AI. Like they will question it. But it's because I'm not allowing the AI to do all the work. I'm allowing it to assist the work. There's a big difference there. And so when we allow AI to be a part of the assistance process and we continue to put our original thought in it, we're doing really well. So in a copyright world, right, where we have all these copyright fights going on, we have all these things. If we don't participate as creators in the large language model, it is never going to get better. So when really great contributors from large publications and magazines and authors refuse to participate in AI, then it's not going to become this high quality thing. It hurts it for everyone, including those people. Now, I'm not saying you should do it for free. I'm not at all a proponent of not getting your fair share of it. It's kind of like, to me, AI is like land rights, right? It's like oil rights, right? A state is using up the resources, everyone ought to get their share. Because at the end of it, it's a better product for everyone. But that doesn't mean that we still can't rise above and be better than everyone else in there by continually by diving deep into the process. So that's what I've done. We have put all our stuff in in large language models. We have given it away.
And Tracy, though, isn't it true that if you don't do what you're suggesting, I mean, you can get really bad information back. AI doesn't, it is not an arbiter of what is truthful or not, or what is accurate or not, isn't it? There's a lot of bad information out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of what they're called hallucinations going on, right? And it'll make stuff up, but it's not making stuff up. It's predicting it, what it's supposed to be, and it's giving you the most common answer for it. It may not have been what you actually said. And so this is where, like, we saw a big report that came out about AI transcriptions not being accurate. And Tom and I have known this for a long time because we've been using AI transcription since 2018. But we have human editors who follow that AI transcription. And in the early days, if you guys remember, if you've ever used a transcription service, you would come back, and even human transcribers would come back and go, I don't know what you said. And so they would call them unintelligibles, and they would be like starred. Sometimes they'd be highlighted. Sometimes they'd be different colors. It depended on the service you use. And it would just basically say in parentheses, unintelligible, right? Like it didn't know what you said. And that's what you would have to go back in and edit. But nowadays, the AI predicts what was supposed to be said there and fills it in. So there are never blanks in it. There are never unintelligibles in the current transcripts that we have today. But that doesn't make the answer accurate. That doesn't make it actually what you said because it can't understand what you said. It just predicted what it thinks you said. So that's not a hallucination. It is a false prediction, right? Like it's wrong. And so to me, it's not making stuff up. It's doing what it's programmed to do. It's inserting something.
Now, hallucinations are actually something different we've been reading a lot about in AI that are sort of wildly inaccurate. Are they predictions or are they not?
Well, it's because it's predicting based on a whole huge amount of people, right? Or a huge amount of things that it thinks, and it's not tighter controlled. So if I said, predict only what Tracy would say, that's a really different model than try and figure out what somebody's saying based on, millions and millions of words and analysis that you've done over time. Billions of words, and in case of some large language model, trillions of words, right? So it's doing that. And this is why you're getting an answer that it believes is right because it's the common answer or it's the most logical. But us humans are not predictable all the time, right?
Right. And that, what you just said is really important, Tracy, that it may not be the best answer. It certainly isn't going to be the answer you might give. You know, AI is not capable of creative thought, and we all have a style and we have a way we think, and the AI doesn't necessarily know that. And if it's pulling data from millions or billions or trillions of words and all sorts of information out there, your answer or your use of that result you get from that kind of AI may be as common as what someone else might use, and certainly not uniquely you. So let's pivot to now what the
Well,
opportunity
I
is
want
for
to,
podcasters, or not yet. You have
yeah,
another
I want
thought?
to use an example of
Okay.
something that happened to us. So it during 2020, our youngest daughter was kindergartner, and she was moving into first grade, and they do this evaluation at the end of kindergarten into first grade. So they evaluate how their thought process is, where they are in their reading process and everything, and their ability to analyze what they're reading. And so because it was pandemic issues, we were doing this remotely. So we as parents were sitting back while it was happening where we normally wouldn't get to observe it. And so our daughter would read the passage, and she's a great reader, and she would read the passage, and it was a passage about coming home from school and having a snack of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and milk. And so at the end of it, it would ask a bunch of questions. And so it asks the question that the test, the thing that was scoring her asked was about, you know, did they have a snack, something to that effect. But it was basically talking about the snack. And the right answer was peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But our daughter is an extremely picky eater. And to her, peanut butter and jelly sandwich is not even lunch, let alone a snack. A snack involves something with sugar in it, right? And so her brain went, there were no snacks here. And that's how she answered the question. Think about that when you answer questions, when you're interviewed on a show, or when you're asking the questions and what answers your guests are giving back, right? We are not always we're giving answers with a history that's very different than your average person. And everything the AI is capable of doing is giving you the common, the average, and the expected answer. So there is no way, if you use AI to generate your show, if you use AI to generate your blogs, if you use AI to create your videos, there is no way you will be a thought leader. You will be a thought follower. It's not possible unless you do a few things. And that's what we want to talk more about today.
I think that's really a very important thing for everyone to understand. And I know I paused there slightly, but I was thinking through this in my brain. AI cannot provide you anything new because what it is based on are things that have already existed. Now it may be able to tell you a different or a better way of saying something, rephrasing a sentence, a title for something. I mean, certainly there are many, many good uses, and I'm not knocking AI. I'm very bullish on AI, actually. So don't misunderstand me, but you as a thought leader have an opportunity to shine and bring your unique message, your unique value to the world, and be heard and found for it even more if you do this properly. So how can we make AI bring out the best in us? Right?
So, starting from our original voice is the way to go, right? If we really begin with what we've already done, what we already have, what we're already using. So, I write articles all the time. I've been doing this a very long time, writing articles for Inc. magazine before, blogging even way before that. I had a blog called Easygoing Green. And I was right about green and sustainable things way back when. So, there's been this core of writing, and I have a style. And somewhere along the line, someone said to me, you need a ghostwriter. you're going to need, you can't keep up with this. It's distracting from your day job. It's taking too much time. You need a ghostwriter. And I was hesitant because I was afraid it wouldn't sound like me, that I would lose that touch point of this thought leadership that I had curated. So back then, like almost a decade ago, I came up with this model of using my interviews, my recorded episodes as the information that I fed to the ghostwriter. So it would have my tone, it would have the way I phrase things, it would have all of that in it already. And today, if you go back to some of my ink articles, I cannot tell you whether or not I wrote them or the ghostwriter wrote them. I can't tell you. So I guarantee you my readers can't tell you. So this is where we honed this idea of our original thought and our original voice has to come through. So it has to be the starting point. It's why we don't change in our blogs. Every blog that you see for any of these episodes on Feed Your Brand, you will never see us make any edits or changes to what we actually, Tom and I actually say, unless something was really wrong, or, and usually that would have been edited out to begin with, so it's not making it into the blog anyway. But unless something was really wrong, or we said it wrong and there was no opportunity to correct it, we might put something in parentheses and make an actual correction. But we still wouldn't edit what was said. We would just make the correction right after it and clarify. So we don't do that because otherwise it's not our tone. We weren't getting the extra bonus points from Google for being a human-based site, right? We were getting, there are a lot of farms that wrote blogs for the last decade. So it's not like the search systems haven't discovered this already. So we were always rising above because we're continually using our original voices. So our approach to AI is the same. We start from what we already have done, we already have, and we build from there before we ask a question. So how does that work, Tom? I mean, when we do it, we are always taking the transcript exactly as is and starting from there before we create a title. We don't create a title before we have a transcript.
We create a working title. We know like the topic we're going to talk about, but we don't figure out or try to predetermine what is that really engaging title that's also optimized for SEO and also really incorporates everything we're going to say in the episode. I don't know that I would ever know that before we recorded it.
Right. So if we want a summary and title, and we do this here. So if you've noticed in our podcast, we have these next up, these preview episodes that we're talking about. Like there's one right now. If you looked at Feed Your Brand right at this moment in time, you'd see a next up, leveraging AI for podcast thought leadership. That's the working title we gave it from a 3-minute clip that we created. So it came from our voice and that title was chosen out of it. I didn't make the title and then record to it. Big difference here, right? I recorded 3 minutes and then that's the title that was suggested as the best YouTube thumbnail title and best title for a webinar. Like, I asked the questions in those ways to get to that. So by doing that, by utilizing all of our titles of our episodes, which we know are really SEO packed, we know they're really good because we've been doing this a long time, right? And we have 300 episodes. When I ask the AI to come up with the next title based on that history, I'm also going to get something that's more in our tone, that's more in our style, that's more geared towards the I'm going to say engagement level we're looking for, but also the target audience we're looking for. When we title our episodes, we're not titling them at a basic, generic, easy level. We're targeting them at a pro level, someone who's serious about their podcast. Whether they're new or not doesn't matter for us because we want them to be serious about making the show successful. So we don't dumb down those titles to like something that's gimmicky and simple and everybody has, right? We don't want them generic.
So what do you do if you're a new podcast starting out and you don't have that history, Tracy?
Well, so I've got a great tip for you on this because I just did this week as a test so that I could prep up and have a conversation with you about it. So Tom and I, this is the end of October as we're recording this, and we're live streaming it obviously on today, and we've got to give you topics. We do 2 topics 2 months in advance, so we've got 2 months worth of topics coming up to end the year for the next live streams, the next episodes, and we've got to have working titles on them. And I didn't want to take the time to sit down and do all of the preview episodes based on the concept. So I thought, what if I went to the AI and asked it what would be the next logical set of episodes, or what should I create? So I tried it 3 ways. The first way I tried it, I asked it to give me suggestions for what topics we should cover. I told him what our show was about, and I told it what the webinar type is or the live stream type is, right? What kind of thing we're recording. That's it. I didn't give it any guidelines except we're in the podcast industry and we want target episodes for new to podcasting and experienced podcasters. So I wanted it to generate 6 of each. It came up with the most generic stuff. In fact, Tom and I went through this list and said, been there, done it. We'd never do one like this. And let me just read you some. Building a thriving podcast community, from social media to exclusive groups. It's like generic, and also it's like an hour and a half webinar. Like, it's too broad. Crafting an irresistible podcast trailer, hooking listeners from the start keyword. We just did that like a month and a half ago.
Well, not only that, that suggestion is actually contradictory to how I recommend people record their trailer. You know how to start a podcast. You can't record the trailer about what your wonderful podcast is about before you've recorded any episodes of your podcast. You don't even know what you're going to do yet. So anyway, I have lots of issues.
So yeah, so a lot of these, and so we were looking at them and we'd be like, okay, we can do the opposite of this, but we're not going to do it this way, right? So that was kind of it. So we looked at them and said, this is not us. And so I knew that immediately when I generated it. I handed it to Tom and wanted to see what he thought. And he thought the same thing. I was like, there's no topics here. This is not good. I was like, meh. So then I fed it all 300 of our past episodes. I fed it our entire feed, basically. So it had the summaries, it had the titles, it had subtitles, it had everything it needed. I just gave it the feed. And it came up with a bunch that were pretty great. It came up with some that I've used, some that I said, oh, we're going to do that one in January. Building a profitable podcast network. We have talked about networks before, but not in this way. Scaling your impact and revenue. Like talking about it from a different angle. I was like, okay, that's good. We should follow up and we should do another episode on that. So it pulled some ideas from things that we'd already done, and it saw that podcast monetization was really popular. So now it's looking at other angles. So it said diversifying income, for instance. And so it gave me some ideas about episodes we could do and topics we could cover. So then I went one step further and I said, okay, great. Now that you understand me and there's these, refine them based on my competition. I want to outrank Captivate, Buzzsprout, Libsyn, and I gave it all of those, all their blogs, and I said, I want to outrank them. So not only did it give me suggestions of it, but it told me why I should do it, which was really an interesting thing. So, and keep in mind, I'm using Gemini here, everyone. Just, this is not normally a chat. GPT doesn't usually tell you why. Gemini does. And so that's Google's version of it. And
there
so
are
it says
many reasons why we use Gemini and not chat GPT. And that's a whole nother discussion. But for what we do and our purposes in our business and in our podcast, just understand Gemini, we believe to be superior in several ways to your chat GPT and some of the other tools that are out there.
Right. So there's one really great one here I like. Leveraging podcast chapters for enhanced listener engagement. Now, keep in mind, I threw out all these titles, so those won't be the titles, but it was a starting point for an idea for a topic. And it gives me the keyword, podcast chapter best practices. Okay, that sounds good. Then it says the focus, how to effectively use chapters to improve listener experience, navigation, and content discoverability, especially on platforms like Spotify. And then in parentheses, it put the key. Your competitors offer this, but many podcasters underutilize it. Now, here's the thing. Tom and I think podcasters should underutilize it. We think it's a waste of time. We think it
Chapters
harms.
specifically within the podcast ecosystem. Please don't jump on all over us for YouTube. That is a
Yeah, totally different.
different situation where we do agree chapters are useful and important, but in the podcast ecosystem, we actually do think it's a waste of time. But this gave us a great idea of what to talk about that might seem controversial and get a lot of attention, right?
Okay, so then the next step I took was I gave it some background. I told it that. I told it that this is not important for us. This is not the way we like it. So then I had it generate a list of titles. So in this case, normally what we would do is we would record our 3 minute, right? I just typed it in because I was trying it quickly for all of you, but I would have normally recorded it. And so here's the title that we settled on. Are podcast chapters worth it? And the subtitle is Exploring the Impact of Podcast Chapters on Viewer and Listener Consumption. So I did take the angle that it was going for here, which was, are you getting viewers and are you getting listeners? And then I generated a description from that I can use to promote this live stream. So for everyone who's looking for that, that's going to air on November 20th. So it's coming up in 3 weeks. You'll catch that and you'll get our full take on all of that. So here's our preview on it, right?
You're saying we're going to go live on that one, November 20th.
We're going to go live. Yeah. Right, it won't appear in the podcast recording probably for another month after that.
Till in December. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, but you can see how the layers of it get better and better. So now I know the shortcut now, and I would totally do this. I did this a long way to show you. Too often people just hop over to ChatGPT or to whatever they're using and they just type in, give me some podcast ideas. My show's called this, give me some ideas.
Or my show's about that, give me some ideas, right?
Give it context, give it history. So to answer your question, if you're brand new at it, what do? Go pick your favorite podcaster in your niche. Go pick your biggest competitor in your niche. Give them that information. Give them their feed. Give them their titles. Give them their blog. Give it information to start from to help you generate what you want. And then make sure you look at that and make it yours. If at the end of the day, you're not making it suited to you and your advice, you're not putting your thought leadership out there. Tom and I used to see this. They call them revenue generating websites, right? Revenue generating websites, money making websites. They made money off of click ads. They do not care what their content is. They only care that it generates ad dollars. They come to the top of the search results. So lots of people click on them. Lots of people get what is this regurgitated, mediocre, bad advice. Let's use the best of both. Let's use the tactics of revenue generation and search engine optimization and put our original voice in there. That is actually how we got started. That is the exact reason, right? Tom and I were doing our 3D print podcast from the beginning. And we started it with a website that we couldn't get anyone to come to the blog or come off the podcast to the website. And we needed to amp up our rule.
Google didn't trust it yet. Didn't know anything about what is 3D Start Point. I don't know. Right. So, but then we discovered how to get traffic to it. Right.
By following those same tactics. But the difference is what we did was we blogged, not a written article that we bought from some farm. We blogged what we actually said on our show. Today, we don't have that podcast anymore. I mean, we have it. It's live. You can go check it out. It's called WTFFF. If you've ever heard us talk about it before, we've talked about it.
And after all these years of it's been like 4 years since we published an episode. It's still getting 10,000 downloads a month, just to give you an idea of the interest that's out there and the traffic it still gets.
But it gets all of that traffic from the website.
From Google.
from Google, right? And so the majority of that, probably like 80% of that
Yeah.
traffic comes straight from Google. Somebody finds our show, and then because we had 650 episodes, they listen to a lot, and that's why you get a lot of download numbers. So your 10,000 listens are like, could be 1,000 people, but they're listening to many, many episodes, right?
Oh no, far fewer people than that even
Yeah, it could
listening
even
to
be far
20
fewer.
episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It could be 100 people in all of our episodes, right? So
Right.
you're seeing a lot of that going on. But today, I still get reached out because I still have the email for all of that. We still keep that site active. We still 3D print, so that's why. But
That's
I
something
still
we
get
don't
reached.
ever talk about. You're right, because
Yeah.
I still 3D print most days of the week. This weekend we were 3D printing some stuff. It's an area of
Oh,
interest.
uh,
Do you want
as
to
a
share it?
teaser.
Yeah.
No. We'll put it on the blog post for this episode at
Ah,
podcastersunited.org. There will be a picture of what we 3D printed in the last week. And this comes from our youngest daughter that we were just talking about earlier. This was her idea to 3D print this. And so we've been 3D printing them for friends and family, and we're printing one more right now. And and we'll share that on the blog post for this episode. So you got to go check it out if you want to see what we're doing. This is exactly how we used to drive traffic to the website off of WTFFF. We would tell them they could see it. There was a video. We would show our printer running. Like we would do all of those
oh,
things.
we would create time-lapse videos of these things that we would print all the time. That got a lot of attention on social too.
Right, exactly. And so that's how we would drive people off the podcast and into our site. And so it went that way, but it also came from Google into the site and then to the podcast, right? So like that's the directions it was going. But even now, I still get reached out to probably like 3 to 5 times a week, someone who wants to collaborate on our website, wants to advertise on our podcast, wants to submit a guest blog, wants to be a guest on our show. There's always someone reaching out to us. They don't realize that a show's not active. They see the ranking of it, and
Yeah, they
that's
see
what they're
usually the
looking for.
Google power gets their attention, right? And they're trying to outrank us on something and haven't been able to, right? So,
And they can't outrank us because the thought leadership is there. The
right.
value is there. It's not just I clicked into this, I got what I needed, and I'm out of here. I got what I needed, and wow, there's more there. Right? That's true thought leadership. That is not what's going to happen. You're going to get your answer from AI quickly, and you're going to go out, and you're going to leave it.
So, can we make a suggestion, put something in a little context more for your typical thought leader that's not 3D printing, because that's really niche. It's very
It is.
geeky and admittedly, okay. Um, but your typical speaker, author, thought leader does what once in a while, or might have several of these that they've done in the past. Have a book, right, Tracy? A lot of
Give a
thought leaders
speech,
have a book or have given speeches,
TED
maybe have
Talks.
TED Talks, right? There's other media and things that, you may have done as a person in business, speaker, author, thought leader type of individual. So while if you're starting a new podcast, you can, and I loved your suggestion, Tracy, to go off your competitors' podcast. So you have a new book, you're thinking of launching your podcast. Who are your biggest competitors who put out books in your field, who put out books that you admire, that you said, well, that was good, but I want to do something a little different? You can actually train the AI to be informed by those other media types, those other, titles and descriptions of those things. You can have it review somebody's website content. You have a book page on the website usually with a lot of background on it. There are other things you can use that can help inform what you want to do. And then it's super critical, Tracy, what you said about inject your uniqueness, your difference, your perspective, your take, your experience into it.
And
So,
your stories, right? Like, I mean,
yes.
that's going to come across in the show. So the AI can never generate the story that would be relevant to you. It also can't do something relevant to today. So, like, none of these lists on here. So, next week, we're going to talk a little bit about politics, which we never talk on this show. And we're really not going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about, um, censorship in podcasting next week. So, this is a little sneak peek to our live stream that we're going to talk about because it's relevant to the time in place. You have to ask it specifically to give you something for this week in the US. You'd have to ask it that specifically. And if you have to ask it, you already know the answer. You already know what you want. So you don't need the AI. You already figured it out in your head. Well, I want to do something for the election. I want to do something that has to do with politics. I want to do something that has to do with freedom. And I want to air it in this week because, it's voting. It's voting day,
It's
right? It's the day
going to
after.
be
But
completely
yeah,
relevant for in context of the time,
right.
which not everybody wants to do in their podcast because I think most of us want timeless podcasts that people will listen to regardless. But while it will ground this episode in time. We're not we're not being political in this episode.
We're
That's
not going
not
to talk
the
about
point.
voting
I'm
or
not
anything like that.
taking
Yeah.
sides or talking about opinions, but it's other aspects of it that are very relevant and interesting, and it will get people's attention.
But that was not on the list, right? I would have had to be so specific about it. I already knew what I should do. And that's where we're using AI wrong. We're not using it to create a boost to the power we already have. So that's what we want to leave with you today. We really want this idea that your original voice absolutely matters. It is going to become even more and more valuable, like those land rights I talked about more, right? You carve out your own originality, your own parcel. That's in the digital space, in the large language model. That's hugely valuable going forward. Keep that in mind, that is going to not only make the world better because you're injecting your ideas, your perspective, you're getting that into the large language model, which means it becomes prevailing thought, but you're also making sure that the AI wants to come back to you. The AI wants to serve you up. It wants to help boost you because it needs more of what you can bring to it.
And it can't create that. Let's be very clear. It can't create original thought. It can't create opinion that is informed by whatever makes you uniquely you. Podcasters in particular are in a very good position in the future of AI to stand out above the crowded digital noise that's out there. So you have opportunity as a podcaster. You really do. And it's exciting to me.
Right. So I want to say that this is, having done this for a long time, I still have trouble getting the AI to break its own patterns. And that is where, when you do not step in both at the front and give it context and relevance and perspective, and step in at the end with editing, with customizing it, with personalizing it, and you just publish it, you just share it exactly as it came off, copy and paste it, I can tell. When I look at your show, I know you used CapShow. I know you used an AI summary. I can tell which one you used based on its patterns because it will say in today's episode, right?
Almost always.
Gemini's tell is a question. Gemini will ask a question first.
At the result, in the result it gives you.
Yep. Tired of this, and this? It says it all the time. I have to break it of it. Now, I use questions too because they're a good tactic, but I can't say tiger of every single time. Want to accelerate, right? That's something you have to break it of. And the only way to do that is to go in and edit it and say, this is bad, this is good. Stop doing this, right? Like, and tell it to stop doing it. And that's how we break it of it. These are really important if you're going to also make sure, and this is the last piece I want to get across to you, is that us humans know the difference. We know when it's really you and when it's not. Even though I said, like, honestly, I thought that I still can't tell sometimes which ink articles I wrote and which one our ghostwriter wrote. But there was still a human there, right? Like, so there was still a human at it. And I always did the final edits. And that's why I can't tell. And if I can't tell, then my readers couldn't tell.
But still, you can tell when you're reading something that somebody just ran a quick query through AI and copied and pasted it for the quick result.
Yeah, because I can tell because I edit that all the time. So I see the pattern that it's already doing. And if it's doing it to me when I'm demanding originality from it constantly, it knows I'm going to come back and make it do it again. So it should be getting it right. And it still doesn't because it wants to give you the easy answer. It wants our daughter to go back and just say what is expected of them, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? I'm not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich fan. I agree with her. Chocolate is a snack, right? So let's keep our original perspectives in. Let's make sure that we're customizing these things. Let's take that little bit of extra effort because it's not as much. We've taken a whole lot of time out of, I mean, remember the old way of doing it where you had to like sit down, brainstorm concepts, write everything, like do all of this. You're getting an assistance, you're getting a boost. So use the time to make sure you're injecting your beautiful thought leadership into this, because that is why I am going to click on your show, subscribe to it, listen to every episode, binge listen to you, and come back to your website for more, for your courses, for your book, for your TED Talk. I want more from real people. So put your thought leadership out there, rise above this AI, but use it because you can make it valuable.
All right, Tracy, thank you so much. Everyone, you can find the blog post for this episode where you can see that image of something we 3D printed recently at podcastersunited.org and access all of our past episode blogs and content. And there's also a lot of other resources for you podcasters. There's a whole tip library at podcastersunited.org. So please check that out. We'll be back next week with another great episode, another great topic. Until then, it's been Tom and Tracy on Feed Your Brand.
All right. Thanks,
All
live
right, live
streamers.
stream world. We'll see you next time. We have some questions here from our people in Zoom, and we look forward to that.